Hello, everyone. Good. I'm happy to see your faces. I didn't do much Thanksgiving because A, I'm Australian, and B, I don't know, lazy cook. But but it's nice to be here. Nice to see each other. So, what is it to be at the cliff edge of birth and death? There's something about gratitude there, you know. Um, So I think you can see the Vermeer, the famous milkmaid pouring milk. Here's Zimborska, the great Polish poet. She says, as long as that woman from the Rijksmuseum is painted quiet and concentration, keeps pouring milk day after day, from the pitcher to the bowl, the world hasn't earned the world's end. Like those old stories about, like, as long as there are 12 or 36 good people, the Messiah won't come and end the world. You know, so here we are. That's what she's doing. Is one of the good people. Thank you for that. It's always a nice thing to both see Vermeer and read Zimborska. So got a twofer that time. And cliff edge of birth and death. And so one of the things I've been thinking about gratitude and that, because I avoided thinking about it before Thanksgiving because I decided to think about something else instead, and and I thought I'd let people experience the presence of gratitude and also the lack of gratitude before we talked about the deeper levels of it. And here's a famous poem of Li Bai. Going to visit the Taoist master on Daitian Mountain, but not finding him. A dog barks amid the sound of water. Peach blossoms hang heavy with dewdrops. Deep in the deep forest, I glimpse a passing deer. The rushing brook muffles the noonday bells. Wild bamboos slice through green mist. Streams in flight hang between emerald peaks. Nobody knows where the master has gone. Left to wonder, I rest among some pines. That's the Levi's so great at saying he's not here and then showing all the ways he's here. So, nobody knows where the master has gone, indeed. And a woman who is not really a great poet, but sometimes says some cool things. Walking along the edge of a sword, running along a ridge of ice, no steps, no ladders, jumping from the cliff with open hands. So if you're on the cliff edge, his theory is just embrace it. And so there's a couple of stories I think I'll get time to tell. There's this famous story about gratitude, I guess, where there was a teacher who, I don't know if she was a Taoist or a freelance Zen person, but she was kind of freelance person, and she was famous. She was famously wise and unimpressed by people's delusions, and, which is always important. Do not let people's delusions impress you, especially your own. So she's and some guy, some youngish sort of rich, like pointless, not the rich pointlessness associated with rich, but in his case, he never sort of earned anything or done anything or deserved anything in his own eyes. And so he comes to her and he says, I want to practice for someone who's A, too lazy to practice, B, has no virtue, and C, is extremely averse to working on practice. And she said, I have the practice for you. And he said, good, tell me, what is it? And she said, I'm not going to tell you unless you agree to do it. And he said, what does that mean? Well, you'll have to do it for a year. And then you can come back and complain to me how it didn't work or anything you want, but you have to agree to do it for a year. He said, no, that's not fair. And she said, you're the one who wants, to grow up. And he hummed and hawed, and she said, well, it's not negotiable, so make up your mind. And he said, okay, I'll do it. And so you do it for a whole year, right? And don't whine to me about it. Don't come back to see me, just do it for a year. He says, oh, and then he says, okay, I'll do it. She says, good. Whatever happens, just say, thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever. And he said, that won't work. And she said, thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever. Off you go. And then she turned to the next person waiting to see her. And so she kind of forgot about him, as one does with such people. But, in another way, they're in our hearts, aren't they? Like if somebody just wants to wake up just a little bit, something might happen. There's a little bit of the desire for the way there. It's a nice thing. So we all of us, nobody deserves it, but in another way, we're all deserving it. So anyway, and she just goes on with her life, and she's one of those kind of famous teachers, and people come around her and say how wonderful she is and how much she changed them. And then he comes back and says, well, you didn't change me. And he said, I've tried it and I'm just still selfish and I'm miserable and I'm lonely and kind of annoying and all the descriptions of ways of being that are quite obvious to anybody in his presence. But, and he said, I'm just in pain, And she says, thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever. And suddenly he opens up with that. And so he laughs and he cries and he says, thank you very much. And that was his awakening story. So I think this is kind of a true thing. When I first heard this story, I thought, oh God, I can't say that to everything that happens, Somebody I love dies, I can list a lot more minor things than that, but, bad leadership, all sorts of things. And Caligula gets appointed to be in charge of the military, all those kind of things. And thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever. And so it was kind of helpful to me, actually, because I thought, yeah, there's enlightenment, but it's all about how we're part of the cosmos and I'm you and all that sort of thing. But then I'm allowed to be annoyed at all these things that annoy me. And later on I realized, is it true that I'm really annoyed at those things? And thank you very much. I have no complaints. And so I found it was much more satisfying not to be complaining about life, And even though I had all these justifications and reasons and explanations, then I found it was much more satisfying not to have justifications and not to have explanations, and just say this. So there we are. And for some reason I want to read this. Miroslav Holub I think he was a doctor, and in Czech under the Soviet rulership, but he wrote poems as well. And then after, Czech Republic became the Czech Republic and liberated itself and so on, they offered him a job. Well, let's just pay you to do poetry. We'll pay whatever we pay you to be a doctor. He said, no, it's good for me to be a doctor, I think, as well. So I'll just be a doctor who writes poems at night, And here's one of his poems. It's called The End of the World. The bird had come to the very end of its song. The bird had come to the very end of its song, and the tree was dissolving under its claws. It's nice, isn't it? The tree was dissolving under its claws. And in the sky, the clouds were twisting, and darkness flowed through all the cracks into the sinking vessel of the landscape. Only in the telegraph wires a message still crackled. Come home, you have a son. That's kind of great. I think that's that's the sort of thing that's not where I thought you were going. And very touching. So, come home, you have a son. So, Holub is often surprising. Holub was not impressed by how we arrange the world. And I wanted to tell you, what else do I want to tell you? I remember I used to teach with this. Well, I got very impressed with this koan, and I taught with it a lot because, that's what you do with something that might help you. And so I thought, wow, that's good. Stop, don't whine, John. And and there was this guy. This was a long time ago, maybe, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago now. And there was this guy who sat with me, and he was he was kind of lost. He was sort of like the guy in the story, actually, selfish and lost. And, he had some spark of wanting awakening in him. And he was very impressed with the story and told how important the story was to him. And then he broke up with his girlfriend, and he wanted to sue her. And and I said, I don't know. I don't think that's quite the spirit of the koan. So to absorb it, to let it, to actually, thank you very much, for the diagnosis. Thank you for the starlings gathering. I presume getting ready to disappear somewhere, but I don't know. It's hard. I don't always know what's in a starling's mind or a flock of them. Thank you very much. I have no complaints. So, and then I wondered, the final, there's something about, that thing, Yun Men said, somebody said, I'm reaching for the light, please help. And he said, forget about the light, give me the reaching. So much of this is about the reaching. It's this life, going back and forth. And so there was a guy came to, there was a famous teacher called Das Sui. This is another koan, but oh well. And he had been a firekeeper with another famous teacher. But anyway, and he took a long time, and he wandered around and visited teachers, and he liked doing that, accumulating wisdom and having tea and wandering. And anyway, eventually people said, well, we'll give you a temple. We'll set you up here. And he said, okay. And then somebody came to him and said, in the fire at the end of the universe, in the Kalpa fire, when the thousands of the universe are destroyed, is this destroyed or not? And nobody knows what he meant by this, because it could mean you, it could mean, I don't know, the starlings. It could mean whatever it is. It could mean your remodeled guest quarters. So is this destroyed or not? But really, it's always about, me, us, the people I love, And Daswi just said, it is destroyed. And he said, does it follow the other and perish? And he says, it follows the other and perishes. And the commentary, it's in the Blue Cliff, and the commentary says, the student had read something in one of the things about how everything is destroyed, and somehow it struck him. And so, but he didn't really get, as is the case, we have to ask and stay with and ask. Thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever. You have to do it for at least a year. Although that's often a lot longer. Because something is changing in the person who's feeling and thinking and seeing things. And that's what takes the time. Something is changing in the vessel. And so he goes off then to another teacher, Tozu, who was also a famous teacher at the time. And Tozu said, who are you and where have you come from? And he said, well, I was with Da Zui. And he says, well, what did Da Zui have to say? And the guy tells him he said, it follows the other and perishes. And Tozu sort of bowed and said, he's an old Buddha. You should go back immediately and thank him and keep studying with him. And really? And so the student turns around and goes back 1,000 miles. And by the time when he arrives, Da Zui has died. And so that's, the 1,000 miles. And he didn't realize that that's the journey itself, the 1,000 miles. And so then he turned around and went back to Tozi and then found he'd died when he arrived. And so it's a profound thing. It's the journey itself, So I guess, I think that's the thing about how there's a lot of poems about gratitude, but they all seemed a little bit, there was too much sugar in them, and some of them are good, but, it's kind of my doctor told me to stay away from too much sugar, and so there's something about that person walking 1,000 miles and turning and walking back, and something so beautiful and touching about that. That's his path. That's where the Buddha is, right there, And there's an eerie way that and somebody later there was a monk at the emperor's court, Chang Sun, who said of Da Zui, that one phrase, it goes along with it. Does it perish or not? It perishes. It goes along with it. Makes the monk run over 1,000 mountains. A cricket whose cold cries in the piled up leaves. That by night a ghost bows to the lamp before a crypt. It's kind of like a Henry James novel. A ghost bows before a crypt. The humming stops outside the lonely window. He wanders back and forth, unable to overcome his regret. That's another thank you very much. I have no complaints moment. There's not a problem here. I got an answer that I needed. Not a problem. So I'm tempted to read something else. Yeah, I will. And then we meditate, okay? And thank you. So I've got Meredith is there nodding, and I look at her and she nods. Okay, we'll meditate. I do notice what you're up to. This is one of the things about gratitude is to appreciate the life you have and appreciate your life. I noticed recently, I think because of the feeling that the empire is somewhat in decline, there's been a more interest in Cavafy, Constantine Cavafy, the great Alexandrian poet who wrote in Greek. And Laurie Anderson, with beautiful music, did a version of his Waiting for the Barbarians poem, although she added some at the end because she couldn't resist changing it to be a nice American poem, which is not really. It's Cavafy is great. It's a bit like adding a bit to Hamlet, but but it's okay. It's also, she's great too, but still, and this is The God Abandons Anthony, a famous poem, and most of you will have read it in Lawrence Durrell. The God Abandons Anthony. And it's about that thing of the regret and the sorrow and everything is lost. The story is that in 31, the year 31, before our era, There was a big battle between Alexander, the Egyptian kingdom empire, which was Antony, along with his queen Cleopatra, and Augustus, who was the new strongman taking over Rome. And most people thought Antony was a better general and all that, but he was very distracted by being in love. and so he lost the battle, and with it, his life. And then Rome took over Egypt and all that sort of. A lot of sequels here, but anyway. And Anthony loved living in Alexandria, and it was his city. And Dionysus, or Bacchus as the Romans called him, lived there. And so it was a city of music and feasting and wine and dancing and things, and poetry, and spiritual practices. So that all this is in Cavafy's poem. The god abandons Antony when suddenly at midnight you hear an invisible procession going by with exquisite music, voices. Don't mourn your luck that's failing now. Work gone wrong, your plans all proving deceptive. Don't mourn them uselessly. As one long prepared and full of courage, say goodbye to her, to Alexandria, who is leaving. Above all, don't fool yourself. Don't say it was a dream, your ears deceived you. Don't degrade yourself with empty hopes like these. As one long prepared and full of courage, as is right for you who are given this kind of city. Go firmly to the window and listen with deep emotion. Not with the whining, the pleas of a coward. Listen, your final pleasure, to the voices, to the exquisite music of that strange procession, and say goodbye to her, to the Alexandria you are losing. So, in that moment when the moment of loss and sorrow, that's full of life too. That's it too, I don't need to explain that, so excuse me, but still, there we are. And it's that wistfulness is there too, and life is always like that. At some stage, it comes and it's so wonderful and it's here forever, and then it leaves us. And why wasn't I informed earlier? So, it's rather, the leaving is it too, yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, then. Alison, do you have anything you want to say?
Michael's music was so melancholy and wistful, and I was at the window watching the strange procession and saying goodbye to Alexandria, the city. I love in that poem the way Cavafy says, I think it's something like one long prepared and graced with courage, which I think is in some sense what having a practice will give one, the sense of courage to turn towards whatever is arriving and whatever is departing. And autumn has such a sense of departure intrinsic to the season, and the nobility of letting yourself have the sorrows of the departures. I don't know, there's something incredibly beautiful about that, and how Thanksgiving is so much holds also that cyclical return and coming back to family. And whatever your family is like at this particular Thanksgiving, it holds both the departure, like we're always standing at the window. That's what Thanksgiving is, I guess. And watching the family that we had, or the child that we had, who's now an adult and no longer wants to come to Thanksgiving, and the sorrow of seeing the departure of the child that formerly would just do anything to be close to me and hold my hand, and that now she's leaving the city and departing, and no, there's just a beauty in having the moment that we're having. So thank you, Michael, for that gorgeous music of departure.
Tess, did you want to say anything?
Sure. I like what Allison was just saying about the turning toward, the courage to turn toward. Just during the meditation, I found myself thinking about how this is a perhaps strange way of thinking about gratitude, but how every time I get much closer to my situation, whatever it is, that a response will often appear somewhere, and that I experience that response with gratitude if it's the right thing, meaning that, like, I don't know, the sun comes out and I feel it on my skin, or the shower, if I really am looking forward to a shower, or whatever I'm turning toward, and that being met feels like gratitude arises. And I spent the holiday at a very high altitude in very cold weather, which I never recommend with family because no one drinks. And so it gets much harder for everyone to be together because of the conditions. And but it was interesting because it was a beautiful place, but just water. Like every time my body needed warmth or water or rest or a jacket or a scarf, or there was just such a feeling of gratitude that, to be met with something. And then in moments where no, there was a lot of as happens during these things, strange moments of tension, like some an argument, a discussion started by someone about the nature of morality one night, and you just think, oh yes, this will go well for Thanksgiving, and to sort and watch the whole thing unfold, watch certain people check out, watch other people sort of arm themselves, watch all the, and to just see what moves appear to kind of like meet and turn the situation, which could be anything from, I don't know, a question, or getting up to do the dishes, or like just entering the situation, whatever it was, and that would be gratitude because it's not feeling stuck, or I don't know, held hostage by anything. And so just, I don't know, that meeting and being met by the world, and the generosity of that continually was what was with me. Yeah, thanks.
John Joseph, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, you were reading the poem, the line, "Come home, you have a son," and I don't know why that line sort of struck me. I guess because I've been away for 3 weeks traveling abroad. Or come home, you have daughters. Come home, you have a dog. Come home, you have a Thanksgiving dinner. And I was. Tess, our family does drink, unfortunately, and some of them, when they drink, they swear. And late at night, it got a little crazy. But it was, even so, it was nice to be. It was so nice to be home, and nice to come back to the Sangha family as well. And also somehow related, but I don't know how, is that milkmaid just pouring the milk, and how important it is that she, like Szymborska said, she continues to just pour the milk, and somehow that holds us all in that pouring, and how nice it is, and how appreciative I am for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicola, did you want to say anything from a different world?
A world where we don't have Thanksgiving, but we seem to have Black Friday, which seems a bad choice. Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about my brother who died in an accident in 2007, a road accident that wasn't his fault. And I was thinking about, thank you, I have no complaints. And thinking that it connects me, it connects me with the pain in my heart in a way. And that in a way is gratitude. And I also, it was his birthday yesterday. That's partly why he came up for me. And I hadn't consciously remembered, but I dreamt about him last night. And I'd broken the shower and he was fixing it, which was very typical. And yeah, there's something about, the way that subconscious and conscious, the way it all kind of connects. Yeah. That's me. Yeah.
Thank you, Nicola. That's beautiful. How those we love are with us in one form or another. Yeah. I think I'm looking for Angela. Yes, here she is.
Well, I guess I was thinking about those intractable disagreements where everything either person says makes it worse, and just the freedom of being with that, to say thank you very much, nothing to be done here. And also thinking about how we've been spending quite a lot of time and energy trying to figure out who has been finding their way into the netted orchard and eating the leaves of the new leaves on the plum trees because it's spring here. And so we got a wildlife camera and set it up and so the camera was set up on the ground, and strolling past the camera was a very robust, happy-looking brush-tailed possum who then climbed up into the tree and was just looking so happy as it took handfuls and mouthfuls and sat and ate and looked around. And very much, thank you very much. I have no complaints whatsoever.
Thank you, Angela. I just noticed Sarah Bender's on. Hello, Sarah. Would you like to say anything?
It really feels wonderful to be here. Thank you. I had one of those connection things happen mysteriously recently. I had a dream about my sister-in-law who's been pretty much estranged. We hardly ever connect. And for years, she's the wife of my brother, who also died in a car accident in 2005. And I had a dream in which she had a wall almost as big as a climbing wall. And with her jewelry, she was making art on that wall. And she's a musician, really, more than a visual artist in her life. And I thought, what? Here's Gina making art with her jewelry on the wall. And so Thanksgiving morning, I called her and I told her about the dream. And she said, oh, well, that's odd because there's a jeweler who's at a thrift store who always appraises my jewelry, and he's retiring and leaving there. And I'm volunteering, helping find out where all this jewelry can go and appraising some of it. And at the moment, I have a pile of jewelry, some of it broken and missing matches, on my floor of my apartment in Chicago. And I'm looking at what to do with it. And I just felt this huge gratitude for the connection that's there still and anyway. And I just said, oh, Gina, we're still connected, Anyway, like that.
Thank you, Sarah. That's beautiful. Eduardo, would you like to speak?
Yes. What came up for me was this sense of appreciation for my life, whatever it is. And right now, it's a difficult moment since I learned that I have cancer. And I still appreciate my life. To be alive is the most important thing. All the rest is secondary. But just being alive, I'm very thankful for that.
Thank you, Eduardo. Lonnie, did you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, thanks, John. I'm just marveling and feeling tremendous gratitude for this exact talk and the way my beloved Sangha seems to enter with exactly what I need. I spent most of the holidays complaining a lot about about my kids and the way my grandkids were and the fact, blah, blah, blah. And I realized that what I was feeling was tremendous grief and a sense of loss, exactly what Allison described. I said to a friend, I feel as though I'm standing on a dock watching my family sort of recede into the distance. And I realized I was sort of mourning not having time with my kids because they are with their kids, as it should be, and they have their families, and wanting it to be different, desperately wanting it to be different than it is. And sometimes it's just, I'm so grateful for this because this is exactly it. And I think I'll get a tattoo that says I have no complaints whatsoever. Thank you.
Ah, yes, thank you. Very much. I have no complaints whatsoever. Strange and marvelous things happen. Thank you very much.